Okay, so my name is Asu. I come from Microsoft. It seems like Microsoft is one of the few tech companies that people are not picking out on, like Google and Amazon. So I'm really happy that I work for Microsoft in these times. And another reason is that I can focus a lot on things like sustainability using my skills. So I will tell you how Microsoft is using drone and AI technology and build, amazing solutions with these to achieve sustainability goals. I think actually the humans might be a bigger threat than drones killing humans and so on. So we have a lot to do thinking about the problems that our world is facing. So a little bit about myself. I'm an Azure architect. Is there any developers in this room? Developers? Only one. Okay. No, are you an Azure developer? Perfect. So we have an Azure developer in the room. So the best time to become an Azure developer was yesterday. The next best is today. So I hope after this session you have the maybe the want and excitement to go out and check what we offer in Azure. I'm also very much interested in environment, like most of the other girls, I guess. I like to build robots, and my current favorite home project is, building electrical skateboards and see if I can make anything autonomous in that area. But in my day job, I work with Microsoft customers to move their data and AI workloads to Azure and build solutions around things like object recognition. So drones are really a great way to capture this data we work on. AI, for sure, is a game changer for sustainability. And the reason is that we're faced with a lot of challenges. Things like plastic pollution in the seas, carbon dioxide emissions. Greta Thunberg talks a lot about the carbon budget we have, which is us having only 8 years left for having the current emissions, so we have to deal with those. And we also have to think about improving the human condition. If you look at United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you have things like fighting against hunger, fighting against inequalities, and so on. So AI can be a real game changer for us. Why? Because it allows us to capture the data, increase the quality and quantity of the data that we can train these models on. So at Microsoft, we understand how important it is to use this technology to make a societal impact. And therefore, we invest a lot on building a sustainable future. So Microsoft invests about $50 million over the next 5 years to people, to the software developers who wants to tackle these challenges that we are facing in these 4 areas. So let's begin with agriculture. I think as a drone community, you are very much familiar with how we can use drones to pick up, the field footage and so on. So I will talk a little bit about that, what we do with this fund. By 2050, we need to double the food production in order to feed the growing population. So that's a huge task we have. And secondly, the water. I was traveling this last 2 weeks. I was traveling in my hometown, Istanbul, and then I went to Paris for an open hack. And oh my God, I missed water in Norway. I literally was dehydrated for 2 weeks there. I was like, what is this water? It's toilet water. And I landed yesterday, was just checking the news, just to keep up with what's happening in our little Norway. And then I saw on the news that in Bærum, there's this place, Østervann. I'm sure a lot of you hikers and ski-goers know this area. It is actually dangerous to drink the water there because the nearby shooting grounds they basically poisoned the streams around that area with lead. It's like a heavy metal pollution. So the water there is not actually safe to drink. So next time you're there, don't drink the water. It's not safe. It has lead in it. So if this happens in Norway, imagine what's happening in the world, right? Oops, sorry. And so drones can be great to, send them out in the fields and streams to actually pick up samples from the water, which is one of the ways that we can monitor the problems. The third one is biodiversity. I mean, you all know that the very species that we're dependent on, like insects and bees, are, like extincting. So we can again use drones to monitor and understand the behaviors of the species that are going extinct. And for fourth one is the climate challenge, and this is obviously again really important. We have extreme weather events. Last year we had about 120 wildfires in Norway, like the Swedes coming us to help to extinguish them and so on. So there's also a lot we can do there. And well, the drones, it's a perfect way to capture data from the field, like I said. That brings us a lot of different opportunities, and most of these opportunities we know already. So I'll give you some examples from the agriculture, from the infrastructure, and from healthcare fighting epidemics. First is this project called FarmBeats. Now, FarmBeats, this was a Microsoft Garage project with some research people who was working helping farmers. And then on November this month, it became publicly available on Azure. So it's now a service on Azure. It's called Azure FarmBeats. It basically allows the farmers to monitor the crop health in real time, and also understand how resilient the crops are and what is their need for moisture and sun and fertilizers. So FarmBeats, it has 3 different ways to collect data. First, we have the sensors on the ground. You have pH sensors and you have moisture sensors. Then we use drones to take a picture and footage of the field. We also use balloons. Now, why do we use balloons? Because in certain areas, it might be that the drones are not allowed for certain technical reasons. So we use also balloons. And then we also collect data from like the weather predictions. So you look at things like precipitation, temperature, the sun, and so on. And then we feed all this data into Azure. That's when the magic happens. So Azure that's the beauty of it. Azure allows you to build these applications from scratch very easily. Most of the services there are natively integrated. So, dumping data on the Azure storage and start building machine learning models, object recognition models, are pretty easy. So, as you see there, it says FarmBeats Accelerator. So FarmBeats Accelerator is actually a combination of Azure services that are made into a pattern. Then you can use this pattern to connect to your data sources directly. Like you can directly connect the sensors that you have in your map, in your farm. And you can also do things like importing your GeoJSON data for your farm map. We also look at the sensor data and the satellite image and mix them together to look at the absolute moisture values of the field. So one of the challenges in having drones and sending them over to the cloud is obviously how to do it in a place where you don't have internet connectivity. So this is quite 2015, I believe, but in this case, we used white space frequencies to send sensor and drone data over to cloud. These frequencies, they are known as the less used, or the like the radio frequencies that are not being used. So we sort of utilize them to send data. So when you have the drone video, or which gets you the panoramic overview, and then you add sensor data on this, you can get pretty much the precision, what we call the precision maps, for farmers to understand, which crops act how and what type of fertilization needs it will need. So if we look at these maps, there will be certain areas where the farmer will get better crop yield. So then they can next year maybe do some changes or buy new seeds and so on, and also, tell their experiences to the other farmers. Another cool thing about having Azure is that on Azure we have Azure Machine Learning Services and containers that easily allow you to deploy these models on edge. So if you look here, there is this panoramic view, and as a human, like, I'm not able to pick up anything from there, but with an object detection model deployed on an edge, in this case a drone, you can easily find where are these certain, like, things on the map. We use similar things, similar models on power lines, right? You can catch, for example, the top hats, or like failures with the power lines with similar types of models. But at the same time, you can use things like Kinect camera to look at the depth and so on, which makes the drones even more smarter. So the second example, monitoring the critical infrastructure. There's a lot of examples I saw in the main area that like Veidekke was also here and presenting their solution. So it's very typical for us to use drones to look at things like power lines, train tracks, bridges, highways, which are all prone to degrading, which then obviously leads to huge challenges. So what we did in Denmark is that we partnered with this company called Sund and Belt, which is basically responsible for maintaining the bridge there. And they used our computer vision API to train a model which picks up the cracks and failures in the bridge. So I'll have a video of them talking about their... Oops.
Med en drone flyver vi rundt omkring Storebæltsbroen og tager billeder af den. Af det beton, som broen den er bygget af. Der er der så en algoritme, som analyserer de her billeder. Så kommer der en rapport ud af det, som vi bruger til at lave vores vedligeholdelsesstrategi med. Og jo flere revner den ser, jo bedre bliver den. Og det vil sige, det er ligesom sådan et lille barn, man skal lære at blive ekspert i at kunne se betonrevner. Og i og med, at sådan nogle anlæg, som vi har med at gøre, det måske kan bestå af flere 100.000 billeder, jamen så er der rigtig mange billeder, man skal se igennem. Og det kan et menneskeligt øje måske have svært ved at kapere. Og derfor er det fint at have den her lille kunstige intelligens til at hjælpe os med at gøre det.
Can we move? Yep, perfect. Okay, so another example, my last example. So in Microsoft Research, we used smart traps and drones to capture mosquitoes in areas we believe there can be, disease outbreaks. Everyone hates mosquitoes, right? So apparently the mosquitoes are perfect field biologists. What they do is they go out and collect DNA from the animals that they sting, and you can possibly analyze the blood sample from the mosquito to understand if there is any disease actually happening in certain area. So in Microsoft Research, they have this project called the Project Premonition. And again, they figured there are certain areas if you look at the map, there are certain areas in where they're analyzing there were actually epidemic causing diseases. So I have this video to look at.
What if we could stop the next epidemic before it happens? What if technology gave us the power to turn this enemy into an ally?
Mosquitoes are the ultimate field biologists, taking blood samples from every animal they bite. Microsoft and its partners are using smart traps to capture mosquitoes and study the DNA they collect. Using the Microsoft Cloud, we can analyze over 100 million pieces of DNA in every sample, so we can identify where diseases come from and how they spread. With the cloud, what used to take 30 days now takes 12 hours, and every second counts. If we can detect new viruses before they spread, we may someday prevent outbreaks before they begin.
We must be passionate, we must be bold, and never stop striving in our desire to make an impact.
We call this inventing with purpose. So, you know, the drones can be used for a lot of different things, but we like to invent with purpose. So, Azure toolset, it's available, and you know, we have one of the best documentation out there. So there's a lot of IoT templates, there's GitHub code, samples, and there's a huge community of Azure developers out there. So I hope it sort of gives you the you know, inspiration to go out and check these services. A little bit about the, like, how do we have this magic, you know, happening part. So this is a typical IoT edge pattern on Azure. FarmBeats also use a combination of these services. If you look at the accelerator, you'll see that there's a lot of services that looks like this. So what happens in, you know, this type of use cases is first you need to digest the stream data with things like Event Hubs and IoT Hub. Then you should be able to explore what's in the data and window the data and so on, because it's time series with services like Data Explorer and Stream Analytics. And then you have, for model building, for machine learning model building, you have tooling for tooling that are called Azure Machine Learning and Databricks. And for doing integration and deployment, you have, you know, like Azure Logic Apps and Azure Functions if you want to, let's say, trigger a process. And then we have, you know, great storage that serves different types of needs. You have the blob storage, you have data lake for machine learning or archival use cases. You have Cosmos DB for NoSQL or document databases and so on. And most of the patterns that you can find on GitHub, there will be a combination of these services with some pre-configured things. And lastly, anyone knew that the Norwegian data centers in, like, they are live now? Anybody knew? Yeah, there's one person, 3, 4, yay! So 2 weeks ago, there was, we had the opening, and Nikolai Astrup was actually officially opened our data centers in Norway. I think this is a huge lift for Norway. And I'm really proud to say actually that our data centers are running 100% on renewables. It was one of the reasons that, you know, we chose Norway as a location. So I hope this was inspirational. I'm very inspired myself. Thank you very much for listening.